Hey everybody, this is Nick Shalom, the former Chief Software Officer for the Air Force and Space Force. I'm now also the founder of Ask Sage. So we get a lot of questions about training Ask Sage to ingest your data and be able to augment the knowledge of the large language models and be more factual and bring more value to you. So first, let's look at the three types of memory we have in the bot. Number one, we have the short-term memory. That's your chat. That's your current chat. And we'll talk about what we call the context window or token window. We'll talk about what that means. But that's effectively your short-term history of your chat. As you can see, you can easily have different chats with different topics. You can rename them and you can create a new chat here. Always start with a new chat when you're starting on a new topic. That's always very important to effectively start with a fresh token window. Alright, so that's the short-term memory of the bot. The long-term memory of the bot is what we're going to be talking about today. Training the bot with your data to be able to augment the knowledge of the LLM. But more importantly, we do that agnostic to the LLM so that you can actually ask questions to any model. And that's very important so you're not getting locked in to a single model and you have options. But more importantly, that enables you to try new models, and when there's new release, you don't get to have to retrain your data into the model. But more interestingly, this is also why we are able to effectively control access and decide who gets access to what data, because we're not using fine-tuning, we're using embeddings. Before we talk about that, let's look at the third type of memory, and that's really tapping into APIs, databases, or data lakes. That's effectively enabling the bot to get real-time information from your data warehouse or your APIs. And that's obviously super interesting. That's how we get to ingest real-time content. We're not going to be talking about that today. We're going to talk about data ingest that's effectively kind of stuck in time. You're ingesting data, whether it's PDF, Excel, plain text, or whatever file type, into the bot and creating labels to do that and be able to retain that data and be able to assign it to different people on a need-to-know basis. All right, so we get a lot of questions about models. You probably know by now that Ask Sage is agnostic to the model, and that's very important. We can bring open source models, we can bring commercial models. If you have fine-tuned your own model, we can tap into that for you as well. So really, you can use whatever model you think makes sense for your business and your organization. Now, a lot of people talk about fine-tuning versus embedding. So let's talk a little bit about what that means and when to use which. And quite honestly, for most teams, you will never really need to fine-tune models. That's really maybe the next level of maturity for very specific use cases. So let's try to explain a little bit what fine-tuning is about. So fine-tuning is really useful when you're going to need to augment not just the knowledge of LLMs, but more importantly, maybe teach a new kind of language, a new formatting. So something that the bot doesn't know about. Not just, hey, I'm going to teach you a new piece of content that you do not need fine-tuning for that. You only really are going to use fine-tuning. Let's say if a model was trained in English and now you want to train it in French or whatever language, or maybe you want to teach it coding and JSON or Python or Go or whatever programming language or format. And that's where obviously that would make sense to fine-tune the model. What does not make sense is to fine-tune the model with your organizational data, because when you do that, you ingest that data into the model and then everybody gets to see that. You have no ability to control who gets to see what. Or you have to fine-tune data on a per team basis. It gets very expensive. More importantly, if there's a new release of the model, you have to re-fine-tune the data. That gets very expensive. It really does not make sense to do that. So with Ask Sage, the way we do this, and we use what we call embeddings, and embeddings, effectively all this does is passing into your prompt the relevant results that you have ingested into our vector database. So all transformers and GPT technology use vectors to be able to generate content and completion, but also that's how we're going to be able to search into our vector database for matching results. Effectively, words are converted into vectors, which are effectively a bunch of numbers, where that is then processed using that vector database technology to search into the database and find relevant results. And that doesn't just mean, hey, we're going to search for a word. Let's say you're searching, for NDAA section 512. Well, it's going to do a great job searching for that section. But what's also interesting with vectors, it's going to be able to match, similar terms and words, right? So it's going to be able to also find matches that are not exactly the same term. It could find, synonyms, but also words that have a very similar meaning or in the same kind of family, right? So if you think of flowers, right, you could easily search for a type of flower, and it's going to find you other type of flowers as well if there is no results matching that flower, something like that, right? So it's effectively expanding your search in a better way than just looking for the exact match of the text. So this is effectively how, when we ingest data into AskSage, we turn that into vectors, into labels that we categorize, and then we can decide, based on your access control, you can decide who gets access to what and when by assigning these labels to other users. But by definition, no one else can see your training data. It's only visible to your account, and then you can share access to your data sets on a per user basis, so then you can effectively expand the visibility of your data set to other users. So when you type a prompt, effectively what happens is it's quite simple when you think about it. Let's say I search for who is Nick Chelon, and I have all data sets now selected, and we have trained the bot on myself, of course. And so what it's going to do really behind the scene is going to take this prompt, match it to results inside of the vector database, and we're going to cap it based on the model to return 5, 10, 15 results from that vector database to augment the knowledge of the LLM that doesn't know about me, but now it's going to have that additional insight passed into the prompt. So it augments your prompt, and your token window is now consumed a little bit more because we're passing these results, which is why we only limit to 3, 5, 10, 15 results based on the LLM you pick, because each model have what we call a context window. And so now we're going to take a look at effectively what is a context window or token window, and why do we need to think about this, and why does it matter? All right, so inside of our welcome screen now, we added information about the models, and we show you here the token window. And what the token window really is kind of, you can think of it as how much the bot is going to be able not only to remember about your previous conversation in the same chat, but also how much room you have for both the question and the answer. And keep in mind, we're passing these data set results into the question as well, so that augments the token you're going to consume. So now let's take an example with GPT-3.5 that has a 4096 token window. That's about 10 pages. You have, in English, one token is about 3.7 English characters, and that's going to change if you're doing coding or different languages. But in English, it's about 10 pages. So that's kind of your entire context size or token window. And so the way to think about context size is really that's going to be all of the bot capacity to remember and answer information, right? So every chat, right? If you create a new chat, you're getting 4,000 token for your context window, and that token window is both your current prompt, your past history, and again, based on the model, we're going to return 5 results, 10, right, depending on how much room we have to give more information. But effectively, that's why if you keep following up with the bot, at some point it's going to forget, right, the history, because we can only pass so much information, because that's going to use all your tokens. So we can't just keep adding that history of the chat into the prompt, because at some point you run out of context window. That's why big models that have a big context window can remember so much more information, because there's more room for the model to not only remember your current prompt, your past history, but also don't forget that we also pass the vector results based on your current prompt. So only your current prompt is assessed. So if you ask, who is Nick Chelon, and you send that as a first message, what this is going to do is going to query our vector database, look for the top 5, 10, 15 results depending on the model, return that into the prompt, and then send it to the LLM to give you what we call a completion, which is the response. So now the entire thing really is what you have to think as a context window. So that's only 4,000 tokens, so about 16,000 characters or 10 pages of text for GPT-3.5. So if I write a question here, who is Nick Chanel? As you can see here at the bottom, you can see it's only 20 tokens for that prompt. But again, keep in mind, this is now going to search my vector database, look for the top 5 results, and send it into the prompt, right, to augment the LLM knowledge. Otherwise, it wouldn't know who I am. And so now that actually consumed way more than the 20 tokens because we had to pass all my bio information so the bot can actually give you relevant and factual information. And then, of course, the completion, the response, is also added. And as you can see, that's probably, if I copy and paste that response, we're going to see how many tokens that is. And that's, 148 tokens. So again, we have 148 tokens of response. We had a 25 for the question, probably 1,500 for the embeddings passed from my data sets about me to the bot. So that's, close to about, let's say, 2,000. Okay, so you already use half of the model context window. So now if I do a follow-up and I say, let's pick one of these questions. What are some of the companies Nick Chanel has funded? Well, now it's going to pass the chat history, right? So it's going to pass who is Nick Chanel, the response, right? And then it's going to go into the vector database for that specific question, not for the initial question, but now it's going to pass only what are some of the companies that Nick Chanel has funded. That question is going to be passed to the vector database to return another 3, 5, 10, 15 results depending on the size of the model. That's going to be added into the prompt, into my question, to be able to help the bot give the right answers. And of course it's now giving you the response. So as you can see, that's a good response. And now if I look at the response is 246 tokens. We probably passed another 1,500 data set tokens in there from the vector database. So again, you probably use the entirety of the context window right there, or you're very close to it. So if you do another follow up, right? If I follow up one more time, well, now what it's going to do, right? It's gonna take again the first 2 questions and the answers. And now, it has less room to be able to pass context information from the vector database. So it might decide to remove the first question to be able to give more room for the new question and for the response. So again, we do that in the background. You don't have to worry about it, but it's something to know about, right? When you decide which model you're going to use, you have to keep in mind that it's not just about your question and how big of a response you're going to get. You need to keep in mind we're also going to be passing information from data sets. So if you're asking a question that is not really dependent on training information that is coming from our data set or your data set, always go here and put none, right? You don't want to pay for tokens that you don't use, because it's going to return results that might not even be relevant, right? And so it's going to still return some results because they are the closest and the most relevant results that we have. But maybe you don't need it. If I ask a question about coding, and I ask, to write a Python function, well, I don't need to pass data sets, right? Because it's coding. The model knows about coding without being trained from the data set. And so don't forget to put none. But also, if you're doing if you're asking a question to the bot about a very specific topic and you created a bunch of data sets, only pick the data sets that are relevant, right? You don't want to have a chance for the bot to pick, the top 10 results from the wrong data sets and then get, the wrong answers because you did not select the right data set. So if you leave it to all, the risk is that it's possible that the bot, is going to pick vector results from the vector database that might not be the one you're looking for because they are still a close match, but maybe they came from a different data sets like the NDA 2023 or something like that. So you want to don't select and really scroll down, and you can pick more than one, right? If I wanted to pick from the NDA 2023, I could do that. But if I want to pick from my test data set here, and I want to pick, maybe from this data set about Microsoft here, I could do that, right? And now it's going to at least only limit the results from these two data sets. So it's going to be more likely that my top 10 results I get from that will be, more relevant. So again, always important when you ingest data that you create data sets on a per topic basis, right? So you could have one about your company organization, you could have one per program or per team, or you can divide it the way you want, so that makes sense. So you can share it with the right people based on need to know, so you can create as many labels as you want. So let's take a look at how I could easily create a data set now. I'm going to call it data set Nick demo here. And so now I created this data set. That's created. Now the data set is empty, and if I scroll down, I'm going to be able to see it here on the list, and I can remove, if I want, remove the other ones. So now I have this blank data set. So when you train data, because of the limitation of the model, initially when we started, we only had GPT-3.5, which is really 4,000 tokens. So we used to pass maybe 3 results, right, of the vector database, and we kept it and limited to 500 token per training result, because let's say I return top 3 results. That's already 3 times 500. That's 1,500 tokens out of the 4,000 tokens that's already used by the vector database. Then I'm going to pass your question. That could be 5 tokens. That could be 1,000 tokens or 2,000 tokens. And then I'm going to wait for the answer. That could be another 1,000 or 2,000 tokens or even more. So obviously we don't want to waste tokens, and we want to be efficient, particularly with small models. Now, it's very clear that the market is moving to have new models like Claude 2, that is 100,000 tokens. That's like 250 pages. So slowly but surely, this context management nightmare is going to go away, because models are going to get bigger and bigger, bigger context windows, and you're not going to have to think about it too much anymore. But for many models, when you want to be inexpensive, GPT-3.5 is definitely the cheapest model, and it's about 50 times cheaper than GPT-4. So you want to use it as much as you can, and you don't want to waste tokens as well. So it's something to think about when you train, obviously, the bot about your content. You want to create data sets that are very precise. You want to put a bunch of results into one data set and hope that the bot is going to find the right results when you query it. That might not be happening, but you also want to be able to train them down to 500 tokens. So that's why you see that we do a lot of summarization. If you look at our plugins, for example, if you look at the training plugin here, training content into data set, and that we recommend here, as you can see, the 500 token maximum. So of course you can copy and paste your content, and see in the bottom right here you can see if I type any kind of training, something like Nick Chelan has a dog called Benny, and Benny was beaten by a snake last month. So that training will tell me here it's only 32 tokens, so I'm fine. If I were above 500, either you could truncate it, right, but make sure you keep the context, right? If I just say I have a dog called Benny, well, if you ask a question something like, does Nick Chelan have a dog called Benny, the bot is not going to know that it's Nick Chelan that owns the dog. So you want to be precise, right? You want to keep it with context. So I will say, Nick Chelan has a dog called Benny, because that will help the bot find the information with the right keywords. So always think of keywords, right? And that's why we have this summarize plugin too, right? You can go into summarize file for a PDF or whatever, or just content. So you can copy and paste. Let's say it's longer than 500 tokens. You can copy and paste here, and you can limit it. In this case, you could limit it to 500 characters. 500 token pretty much. But keep in mind the bot is not very good at counting characters or tokens, so it's going to be wrong. So you may have to tweak it and do it again, or look at the size of the result. So now let's train this data set we just created. So it's as simple as doing a /train command. I could also use the training module. I could also use the ingest file, or ingest content here, file content, or plain text content. But first, let's do a simple example here. /train, I put my data set and the content. So now if I train that, this is learned, it's only 18 tokens. If I clear my chat and I ask something like, does Nick Shalom have a dog called Benny? Because I have the data set selected, it says yes, he has a dog called Benny, and he was beaten. And so you have the reference. That's very important, so you know it's not a black box, it's not a hallucination. That's always critical. Now, if I were to look into my data set, and I can do that just by doing /get Benny, so I can search all my data set I have access to, and I can see here the first results in my demo data set is the training we just did, and I delete it, right? So I copy the ID here, and I do /delete with the ID. Now I just deleted this data set, this entry we just made about Benny. So now the bot doesn't know about Benny anymore. And I'm gonna put all the data set now and clear the chat. And I'm gonna ask a question again. Does Nick has a dog called Benny? And what's interesting is it's no, but he has a French bulldog named Monk, because I have another training that says that. So the bot is aware of my other dog. So that's kind of the beauty here, is the ability of the bot to redirect the user to an answer that makes sense, right? Now, if I were to ask the same question, I clear the chat, and I select Nick Demo now, and the Monk training is in a different data set, so it's now going to know about Monk, my other dog, and I ask the question. It says no, he has a pet owl named Al. Well, that's the Ask Sage owl. It's kind of the funny joke we put in the bot. But really, it says no, it doesn't have a dog called Benny, but it doesn't mention Monk anymore, because effectively we only limited the query to Nick Demo, and the answer is actually inside of another data set that I have Nick Monk here. So if I clear the chat and ask the question again, you're going to see that it's going to be able to pull the right results now. And again, that shows you the ability to create different data sets, assign it to other users, and we help you do that. You can just email the support email, and we assign your data set. You just give us the name of the data set and what email you want to share it with, and then we're going to do that for you right now. We have a security in place to do that. So just reach out to us if you want to assign a data set you created to one of your colleagues or friends. But that's going to be read-only for them. They can also create a data set for them and then share it with you as well. So then you have both, access to each other data set as well. So now this was a pretty simple example where I trained about, it's agnostic to the model. I could ask the same question with GPT-4 or Google Bison or Claude 2. It would have the same knowledge. That's the beauty of Sage, right? It's embeddings. Embeddings are on top of the model, passed into the prompt as prompt engineering, not fine-tuning, which effectively only lets you train the model on a per model basis, and then you have no control of who gets to see what. So again, now let's show you maybe an example of ingestion of a PDF, right? So let's say I have a PDF. I want to train the bot about that PDF. I'm gonna pick the ingest file content here plugin. And again, these plugins are only accessible to paid users, but again, it's only $30 a month, so pretty inexpensive. So now I could pick, let's say I pick the Ask Sage PDF. It's a one-pager, so it's going to be pretty simple here. I'm going to pick my data set, Nick Demo here, okay? So, and I'm going to hit submit. What it does, right, it just took the PDF and extracted the text. So now I have the text, I can submit it. And now it's cutting it into chunks, right, based on the size of the text, and it's cutting it into 2 chunks. It's asking me, do I want to train these into my data set? If I say yes, right, effectively is doing the job for me to cut it into chunks and train it. That, it's also asking me if I want to summarize this content that I just ingested, because let's say it was 20 pages and not just 1 page, right? You also want to be able to answer questions that are broad about the entire topic, right? But again, because we only return 3, 5, 10, 15 results. Let's say you're ingesting a book that has 20 chapters. If you only return 5 results on GPT-3.5 and the question is broad about the entire book, the answer is going to be wrong, right? Because you're only going to have a piece of the book. You're going to only have a few chapters of the book. So by doing iterative summarization, and we keep summarizing to make it shorter and shorter, so you could do a summary of the chapter and then do a summary of the chapter to get a summary of the book. Now I get effectively a broad summary of the entire book, right? And now the bot is going to be capable of answering broad questions, but also pretty precise question about one piece of the book, because we also ingested the entire book. So by doing both summarization and the entire thing, we can answer every question. Now, if it's a really long piece of content, you actually have to do iterative summarization. I'll show you that. But first, this is one page, so if I just summarize it once, it's already gonna take it down quite a bit. And so now what it's telling me, it's gonna do one summary, and it just summarized it and gave me the summary, and it's now asking me if I want to train that into the bot. So yeah, I say yes, into the data set Nick demo. So now that's trained, and now it's asking me if I want to do further summarization of the content. So if it was a long book, I wouldn't need to do that, but this is short enough. But let's say you had a massive piece of content and it was way more than 500 tokens. You wouldn't want to keep doing iterative summarization until your final results is under 500 token. So then you have a full training, the full summary into one training, but then you've done it iteratively, so the bot is able to answer different questions. So that's how you create a data set about a PDF, create a new data set profile, or whatever you want to cut it into, and now you can ingest that and do iterative summarization to be able to get the entire knowledge into that data set, and then use it for queries. I trained the bot now on Ask Sage with this one pager. We already had a bunch of training, obviously, about Ask Sage, so that's already in different data sets. But let's say I'm writing an RFP and I'm response, and I want to bid on a government RFP. Well, we have this plugin, and you go check out our RFP response video about how to do this in more detail. But just quickly, right, when I do my RFP response here, I give a little bit of context about who I am. I copy and paste the RFP here, and then I provide key context about the company and kind of the value proposition we bring to the table. And you can also train the bot into Sage, right? Don't select which data set you're gonna pass. But again, you have no guarantee. Let's say you have 20 entries in this data set about Ask Sage and the product we do and the value we bring. One about the APIs, one about the ATO, and one broader about the company value and what we do. You don't know which of the results are going to be sent to the bot. So it's always good to either extract them or just insist here in this box here, to insist on the key points that you want the bot to focus on, and double down to ensure that the bot is going to extract the right results. The other option is a new plugin we created to effectively enable you to extract the right results, so that you can control what embeddings and vector information the bot is going to use to respond to your RFP. So let's take a look at how I can extract from my data sets information to then be able to populate the prompt correctly so that the answer will be the best it can be. Alright, so I'm going to create a new chat, and I'm going to use our new plugin here called Search Dataset. And all I got to do here is write my plain English question to narrow down my results. So maybe I could do something like, show me all the results that contain the Ask Sage and from the dataset Nick demo, right? So of course we probably only have a couple. So now what the bot is doing is converting this plain text query into a query to search the dataset and give me my results. So as you can see, now I have the right results. It extracted information, but maybe I want to use just this one, right? And so what I do is I do a new chat, right? And then I can just simply copy and paste the content into my prompt, right? Or I can go into the plugin here and simply in my RFP response plugin and copy and paste it here, right? Either way, I ingest it into the prompt, or I can stay in the same chat, right? And it's gonna keep all my results, right? Or I could say, I could narrow it. Let's say I had 50 results and I want to narrow it down. I could add, a way to filter even more and say, mention, talking about Azure government, right? So if I try again and I say, show me all the results that contain Ask Sage, that contain the terms Ask Sage and Azure government, and are from the dataset Nick demo. All right, so it's generating the query. I got the query, and now I got the results. Of course, if I look, both results here are mentioning Azure government, so that's good. So it did filter the results correctly. And so now I can build. I could copy that into a notepad, or keep that on different chats or into my prompt, and I can now build the right key results that I want to bring into my data set, so I'm in control of my prompt. And then when I run my prompt, instead of letting the bot select the data set for me and select the results for me, I can put dataset none and provide that into the prompt and copy the right results. Or I leave it in my history here, right? And because the bot is receiving the history, particularly if I use GPT-432K, which is 80 pages of prompt, it's going to keep all that information here, right? And so now I can actually even ask it. Let's say I just search my past performance DevSecOps data set, and I want to summarize all of the value we brought to life to our customer. I could now say, based on the information provided above, summarize what Ask Sage does and its value proposition in details, right? And so now I have dataset none, but I have the chat history above here, and I can just use something like GPT-4 and run this, and it's going to be able to take my chat history and use that knowledge base to generate a summary, right? So you could do the same with past performance data that you have in different data sets, and then use that to down select with a search into the data set, and then ask you to summarize it to make it more concise. And so as you can see, it did a great job. It just summarized these two results into one and gave me the right neat description. So it did a great job. And that's exactly what you could do by training the bot, then searching the right results, or letting the bot do it by using your prompt. But again, you had the mercy of the bot picking the right results. I like to control that by doing my own searches and narrowing it down, and then summarizing, and then being able to use a summary into my final prompt to be able to generate an RFP response. So I know that's a lot. I know it's complex. This is high level of maturity when you're trying to write RFPs. And when people say, hey, the bot is not being factual, you're not getting the right response, well, blame yourself. This is, you're not doing this work. You're not helping the bot to have the right knowledge to be able to answer this bid. In this example, again, you could summarize what the company is about, and then you could do the same about past performance, about the topic, and give another set of summary, and maybe even give a couple of examples by extracting that from your data set. And so by using the search dataset plugin, you can really type a query like, show me all my past performance related to DevSecOps, and it would give you all of the results. And then you could then easily summarize it or extract it, or just say, pick the top two examples, the most relevant to this RFP, and provide a summary of each of them that would make sense for the government teams to understand the value we bring to the table, something like that. And it would give you that content that you could then use into your RFP response prompt to help the bot give you the right answer. So again, token window or context window is so important, right? That's kind of how much the bot is going to remember. Again, based on the model you pick, now by going into your welcome screen, you can go here and see your token window. So obviously GPT-432K is super expensive. It's 100 times more expensive than GPT-3.5, but it gives you 80 pages of context window. That's not just good for the question and the answer. It's also good for all that knowledge, all these data sets, all that knowledge, that you're bringing in from your training data that can then be used for improving your answers and make it relevant and factual. So, of course, it's more expensive, but it's clearly worth the money. That's how I do it. You could do it with GPT-4, but now you're down to 20 pages of context window. So that's both your question, your answer, the chat history, and the context data you're going to be passing to the bot from the data set. So that could easily go above that. So again, this is something to think about, right? How do you end up don't selecting the right insight for the bot by searching and filtering, and then being able to use that into your final prompt to generate the right RFP response. Or the same thing can be applicable to anything you're trying to write. It could be your NIST 853 controls. You want to be able to extract cyber information, cyber products you're using, and so you want to summarize that. So you could have a data set about your cybersecurity, and then you could ask it to summarize all your cyber products that you use and the value they bring, and then you could use that into your NIST 853 control writing to ensure that the response and the implementation detail makes sense. Again, this is applicable for any use case, whether you're writing code or you're writing anything that you want to have additional insight brought into the knowledge of the LLM. You want to do something like this. So now, I wanted to show you also, what happens, when you do good prompts and bad prompts, right? So let's go back to to training the data set that we created about Benny, right? And we're gonna say again, Nick Shaw has a dog called Benny, and Benny was bitten by a snake. So I'm gonna show you an example of a bad prompt. Well, if I just say something like, "Who is he?" right? And I don't give a name. Well, the bot is going to be confused. Who is he? There's no context there, right? If I now say, who is Nick Chilon? So it gives you the right description. We have data sets to all. Now it understands because I put Nick Chilon. That's the keyword that are going to be used to search the vector database to find my bio and return the right results. If I just say who is he, it's not going to know. And if that was sent to the vector database, it wouldn't match any results because it doesn't know any keywords in there to be able to provide the right results. So now if I were to ask, so as you can see, if I ask does he have dogs? Well, I have he here, but there is a keyword here, dogs, and the vector database has two results for dog, right? There is Nicolas, a French bulldog, and it does the relationship with bulldog into two words. So as you can see, it was able to find that, but it's also able to find this other entry about Benny. So it says, yes, he has dogs, one monk and Benny, and he's showing you the reference. But again, he assumed that he is Nick Chilon. So if you had, 20 people with dogs, it will get confused, right? So you want to be precise in your prompt. So, if you ask, summarize this RFP, and you copy and paste an RFP that's 20 pages long, it's going to do a great job at doing that, but it's not going to bring examples that are relevant from your data sets because that's not matching the results of the RFP. So again, always have your keywords in your prompt so the bot knows what to extract. And that's why often I like to control my prompt, and I often like to use the search plugin to extract the right results. So let's take a look at how I could do this with the dogs. So I go and search my data set and I say, show me all results mentioning dog, and from the data set Nick demo or Nick monk, because you want to narrow it down and make sure you don't get too many results. So I got my query and I got my two results. So now, even if I put data set to none, and I say, does Nick Chilon have dogs? It says, yes, he has a French bulldog named Monk and another one Benny, because we fed it from the chat history. It's using this chat history here and these results to know that insight. Despite us having put data set to none, now I am in control of what information I'm passing to the bot. It's often able to do a good job on its own, but for complex prompts, particularly long prompts that have a bunch of information, bunch of sentences, it's going to get confused, right? What if I ask about, does Nick Shylock have a dog? And I ask also, how many employees are, have Ask Sage into the same prompt, it's going to get confused, right? Because it's you don't know what kind of results do I need to extract from the vector database. Do I need to extract dog results, or I need to extract results about employees of Ask Sage and Ask Sage as a company? So it's not going to know which one to bring in, right? And he might try to do a little bit of both, but he might miss some results because we're limiting the results to 3, 5, 10 based on the model you're picking. So again, it's just easier for you to don't select the results and then use that as a source to then be able to answer the question directly to the bot. Another way to do it now is, to copy these results, right? And then clear my chat. And I just copy and paste in the prompt, and then I say, does Nick Shylock have dogs? Now I control the prompt. I gave, all that information into my prompt in JSON. I don't need to change it. I put dataset to none, but yes, it's still giving me the right answer. A French bulldog, and he has Benny being by a snake. So that's interesting how it was still able to extract that information here from the prompt. What's also interesting is comparing the quality of the different models. So let's try the same prompt, clear the chat. Always clear the chat when you swap between models. Let's try the same question now with GPT-4. Yes, he has 2 dogs. One is French bulldog, and the other one is Benny. Right. So it's interesting to compare the models. GPT-4 is definitely better. If we try Claude 2, which again is not a proof for CUI, but this is not CUI. So let's see how Claude 2 is doing here. It has 2 dogs, a French bulldog, and a dog named Benny. So it did indicates Benny was bitten by a snake last month. So yes, he has at least 2 dogs. So see, that did a great job, even probably more interesting than GPT-4 here. Let's try Google Bison. So Google Bison was not able to use that insight to give the answer. Now let's try Google Bison with the data set. And instead of passing the information, I just ask the question. So that worked. So clearly Google Bison was not trained to pass information into the prompt directly, but with the embeddings it was able to give the right answer. So there you have it. It's important for you to manage your context window, your prompt, your embeddings you're going to pass into the bot by training data sets and really dividing your data sets into the right buckets to not only control who you give access to that information to, but also to limit the confusion of the bot. That's how you're going to manage your context window. And then of course, based on the model you're using, you have bigger context window where it becomes a non-issue, like Claude 2 with 100,000 tokens, or GPT-4 32K with 32,000 tokens, which is again about 80 pages of prompt. Hopefully this is helping you to train your data, be able to understand how to do that, and understand the different models, then to consume and respond. Use that search query data set plugin we released to help you narrow down your results and use that to respond to your prompts. And if you have any questions, reach out to us either at support@asksage.ai or go on Discord. The link is here, so you can reach out to us. We have 500 plus people on the channel to be able to help. Stay safe, everybody.